Hello and welcome to the Scatterable channel, and today we're going to be covering what I think are the best used graphics cards to get in early 2024. So as we can all tell, at least here in the United States, it's impossible to get a brand new graphics card in stock, and if it is, it's so far off MSRP, it's actually a worse value than what you could have gotten last generation 6 months ago during Black Friday and Cyber Monday. So given that, there's still quite a few of you who need a graphics card, and the good news is that there's actually quite a bit of good used graphics card deals that are flying under the radar that you should take advantage of. And you shouldn't feel bad getting a used graphics card, because 9 out of 10 times, anything you get used is gonna offer much more value than buying something brand new for the same price. And even if it's a 2-generation old GPU, you actually won't still be that far behind in terms of overall technology. So you really aren't missing out, other than saving yourself a lot of money with a graphics card that's used. And the best part is I've got 15 different used graphics card recommendations I'll be covering in this video, from $50 going all the way up to $500 and slightly above. So with all that said, all of these will be linked in the description down below if you want to check them out, along with our sponsor Java.gg. So if you are looking to get a used graphics card, Java.gg is an excellent marketplace by PC gamers for PC gamers for buying and reselling a bunch of your PC components, including graphics cards. And there's quite a few deals we'll be covering actually from that website in this video. But not only do they offer great graphics card deals, but also some really solid pre-built deals that I do recommend if you want to get a PC that is already built for you, because those are actually worth their dollar and are actually not made to be at the lowest cost to get the highest profit margin like some major AIB retailers for pre-built PCs. Anyways, they're a really cool website to shop from for PC components and PCs, so I'll have them linked in the description down below, like I said, along with all the other graphics cards I recommend throughout this video. So first things first, let's set some baseline expectations. So the whole reason why I'm making this video is because none of us can get graphics cards that are in stock, or if they are, they're well above MSRP. And on the used marketplace, a lot of people are capitalizing on that. They're reselling their old Radeon RX 7000 and Nvidia RTX 4000 GPUs for above MSRP. So above what they paid for these graphics cards brand new. So if you're wondering why there's gonna be a lack of Radeon RX 7000 and RTX 4000 GPU recommendations in this video, that's because they're all horrifically overpriced right now, and people are capitalizing off of the supply issues right now with Nvidia and AMD. That said, if you were to catch this video 6 months from now and no longer are those graphics cards being oversold on the used marketplace, these are the ones I'd look at getting from Radeon. Look at the 7800 XT, the 7900 XT, or the 7900 XTX. All of those will, I think, be excellent bargain picks on the used marketplace. And if you're lucky, there's also the 7900 GRE, but I don't suspect there'll be many of those on the used marketplace. Still, it's a fast graphics card. I could just see it being at the same price of a 7900 XT, which I'd rather get the XT in that case. Then from Nvidia, the only one is the RTX 4070 Ti Super. Yeah, again, the #1 graphics card I like the most from RTX 4000 when it was new. It's also gonna have to be the same one that I recommend used. So with that said, I want you to like the video. Yep, that's your entrance fee for watching this video. Make sure to like it. And now let's get into it. All right, let's kick things off with the best used graphics card under $100, and surprisingly, it's actually from Nvidia. No, seriously, I checked out the price to performance graphs of different used graphics cards under $100 that I recommend, and this one's actually a top candidate. The 1660 Super. Weirdly enough, you can find these for about $90 on used marketplaces, which is pretty surprising. And even here on Java.gg, you can find one bang on for $90. And what's cool with these is that if you look right here at this GPU hierarchy chart, which is just a rough plot of all the different available graphics cards on the market, the 1660 Super, when it came out, had the same performance of a 1660 Ti, so it undercut its own competition in some ways. I'm not gonna say any more. I mean, sure, it has 6 gigabytes of VRAM, but if you have under $100, You probably aren't going to be playing at bleeding edge graphics settings on the latest AAA games. You're probably an esports gamer playing Valorant, Marvel Rivals, so on and so forth. And this is going to be pretty good for 1080p gaming, that is. So definitely consider this. It is the last GTX GPU that Nvidia ever made. So this will not do ray tracing, but I mean, what were you gonna expect under $100 used? Then the other graphics card I buy for under $100 used, that's gonna be a little bit cheaper, but not as good in terms of FPS per dollar, is gonna have to be the 5500 XT 8GB. Now, let's get one thing straight. You wanna get the 8GB version of this graphics card. Don't get the 4GB, no matter how cheap it is. You are going to be severely nerfing even your 1080p gaming performance if you get that 4GB card. Just get the 8GB, and this will also do really good at 1080p, just not as good as the 1660 Super, but it's, again, another option that I do recommend under $100. But now the elephant in the room, many of you are going to be asking, but where is it? Why didn't you talk about it? Yeah, you're probably talking about the RX 580, right? No, I don't recommend it anymore under $100 because it's outdated. It doesn't matter how good its price to performance is, it's lacking in driver updates, and it's lacking in the latest mesh shaders. So if you even think you're gonna play any of the latest AAA titles on it, it's going to suffer. And even for certain esports games, like Marvel Rivals, you literally have to crank everything to the lowest settings and enable all of the FSR at their maximum benefit to get that thing close to 50 to 60 FPS. I mean, the latest driver update for the RX 580 came out, I think, in October of last year. And for comparison, the latest driver update for the GTX 1060, which released in the same time frame as that graphics card, was like 2 weeks ago from Nvidia. So yeah, driver updates for the RX 580 are slowing down. It's not as supported. It's just getting old. That's why I'm not gonna recommend it. Now for the best used graphics card under $200, a lot of you would think that it's actually the Radeon RX 5700 XT. And technically you're right, because it does offer the most price to performance under $200 used. But this graphics card is also showing its age, which I'll get into now, because this lacks mesh shaders. If you were to load up Alan Wake 2 with the 5700 XT, have fun, because it's gonna struggle, because this thing just does not have any of the latest mesh shaders in it. And another game that just came out that you might want to play with this graphics card that also utilizes mesh shaders is Monster Hunter Wilds. So it's a thing now, it's a 2025 thing. The 5700 XT doesn't necessarily support it. That said, it's getting third place for the third best used graphics card under $200. If you don't care about playing the latest AAA titles, but you still want the best raw frame rate, consider the 5700 XT. But it also draws a lot of power, which leads us to the second best used graphics card under $200, a Radeon RX 6600 XT or 6650 XT. So more often, you're gonna find used 6600 XTs for below $200. You're not gonna find that many used 6650 XTs, but I personally get this over the 5700 XT because the 6650 XT acquires more performance than that graphics card, but the biggest benefit is the power draw. You're gonna be consuming way less power, like a lot less with the 6650 XT or the 6600 XT versus the 5700 XT. Sure, it's an additional, what, $40 to $30. I'd take that power efficiency gain and better performance over the 5700 XT. But this isn't even the graphics card I ultimately recommend. What I recommend for under $200 used is actually the RTX 2070 Super. Hear me out. In terms of price to performance, it's gonna be about the same as the 6600 XT that I just talked about, but again, not as good as the 5700 XT. However, in terms of power draw, the 2070 Super and 6600 XT are fairly similar, but here's where the 2070 Super edges out. It is a decent amount cheaper. I'm finding a lot of these go for $150 to $160, $175. That is about $15 to $20 cheaper than the 6600 XT. But more importantly, I guess, If you ever wanted to run ray tracing for a graphics card under $200, you're gonna have a way better time on the 2070 Super versus the 6600 XT. Look at benchmarks. This will beat the 6600 XT in ray tracing. So if that was something that even remotely interested you for a used budget graphics card, consider the 2070 Super, because all around, I just consider it probably the best rounded GPU used under $200. Then for the best graphics cards under $300, I've got 3 recommendations. So in third place, we've actually got the 2080 Super, which for some reason on this Java.gg listing right here, you can get one for $220, which is actually insane. I expect at least one of you within an hour of publishing this video snag this. No way this thing just sits like this, because if you look on its competitor, 2080 Supers are selling for, I think, roughly $260, $275, $250. I mean, guys, this for $220 is a steal, and it's from the official Java store, so it's already been tested and verified. Anyways, it's third place because it's also a very well-rounded used graphics card under $300. Nothing wrong with it, it just doesn't offer as good of price to performance as the next 2 graphics cards. In second place, I've actually got the RTX 3060 Ti. I really like a used RTX 3060 Ti because it's basically an RTX 3070 Lite. I mean, compare the 2 graphics cards and they're utilizing the same GA104 die. But if you look on the used marketplace, there's about a $50 US difference. For example, if you look at used 3070s that are being sold right now, a few of them are below $300, but usually they're above $300, like $320, $310, $350. But if you look at used 3060 Ti's, $265, $260, $225. Anyway, you get my point. The 3060 Ti, if we again look at this benchmark chart right here, it's not that far off the 3070, yet you can get it for $50 less, which I totally do. Either way, both of them have the same amounts of VRAM, that being 8GB with the same memory bus width. These will be great 1080p gaming graphics cards. Maybe not my preferred for 1440p because they do only have 8GB of VRAM like the 2080 Super. So if you needed something with a bit more beef under $300 used, that'd be more ideal for 1440p gaming, there's only one graphics card you can get. And this clears the other 2 graphics cards by a mile, and that is a used Radeon RX 6700 XT. This was the 1440p gaming graphics card king in 2022, and again in 2023, and again in 2024, at whatever price point it was being sold at. So the biggest selling point for this graphics card used under $300 is that it has the most raw performance under $300, more than the 3060 Ti, more than the 2080 Super. Sure, it's not gonna get as good of ray tracing performance versus a 3060 Ti, so if that thing is more important to you, then get that graphics card. But if all of you care about is pure frame rate, this is a whole nother tier above those 2 graphics cards. And on top of that, 12GB of VRAM. That's why I rate this graphics card so highly. If you wanted to do really excellent 1440p gaming without breaking the bank, get a used 6700 XT. I'm gonna leave it there. Now for the best used graphics cards below $400, you've got 2 options. The 2080 Ti is a little bit interesting because so many people gloated and glazed the 1080 Ti, which I have left out of this video. For reasons, it's outdated, it lacks mesh shaders, not as up to date as the 2070 Super, but people often forget the 2080 Ti, and I'm seeing it being sold for like $300, $340, $300, and don't forget, this has 11GB of VRAM. That's actually quite reasonable for a used Nvidia graphics card. So this is actually pretty good for an Nvidia choice, but doesn't come anywhere near close what I'd ultimately recommend for below $400. If you know me, you gotta go with the Radeon RX 6800. So to put it simple, why you want to consider this over the used 2080 Ti that I just covered is, for one, this comes with even more VRAM, 16GB versus 11, and in terms of raw computational performance, the 6800 is well above the 2080 Ti Super, yet it can be had for about $40 to $50 more. And I'd totally take that. Now, if you wanted better ray tracing performance, sure, get the 2080 Ti. But if you wanted everything else, absolutely get the 6800. And I will say, just to keep this in mind, you could have gotten this graphics card brand new for $360 6 months ago. So do keep that in mind. But still, even used, I'd gladly take one of these for about $360. That's just a tremendously good value. If you wanted no compromises, 1440p gaming on a used graphics card that isn't going to break the bank, do not look any farther than this. Because beyond this, you're getting into graphics cards that are gonna produce a ton of heat. This is probably like the last somewhat power efficient graphics card from AMD. Because from here on out, it's just gonna get hotter and hotter. And same kind of applies to Nvidia. So for the best used graphics cards under $500, you have only two options. And I will say neither of them are the RTX 3080 actually, for one reason. RX 6800 XT, 16 gigabytes of VRAM, even more performance than the RX 6800 that I just covered. But unlike the 3080, because of how much VRAM this has, you can actually do some 4K gaming on it. So if you wanted a budget 4K gaming graphics card, just pick up a used 6800 XT. I mean, one just got sold off of a bid for $400. Another one, $450. Also not that bad. Now, again, this is gonna be a hot and power hungry GPU. So if that is a deal breaker for you, you are welcome to undervolt this, but consider the RX 6800 that I just covered. But I mean, this is very much an S tier used graphics card deal. This is what? Only about $40 to $50 more than a used RX 6800. If you can handle the heat and you can handle the temps, I'd take that over a 6800 easily. But there's one other graphics card that technically has even more and even better price to performance, under $500. And I'd say of all the used graphics cards in this video, this is the #1 deal other than like a used RTX 2070 Super or used Radeon RX 6700 XT. That's gonna have to be a Radeon RX 6900 XT. You can find these for like literally only $30 more than a 6800 XT, and you're just gonna get that extra little bit of performance over that graphics card. There is a bit of a difference if you really wanna look for it. But look, I mean, there's one that just got sold for $436. There's one that just got sold with the water cooler for $450. That's really good actually. And seriously, 6900 XT, the best used graphics card deal probably out of this whole video other than a few others. And look at its relative performance. It's not that far behind a 7900 XT or 7900 GRE. It's getting close to where like a 4070 Super is, but you're not paying anywhere near 4070 Super prices. And again, you got 16 gigabytes of VRAM to work with. Both of those are really, really good. And this is kind of where the video ends, because if we were to look at used prices for even crazier graphics cards than these, like the 6950 XT, you can find these for like, if you're lucky, $450, but usually I found them for about $500, $575, $550, so about maybe $100 more than the 6900 XT. Yet if you look at its performance gap, that's barely anything. So this is the only other higher end used graphics card I possibly consider, but it's not necessarily gonna give you better price or performance than a 6900 XT, which is already gonna be fast enough. And then the other one I think I would like to point out that isn't spectacular, but if you insisted on getting a higher end Nvidia graphics card that's used, a used 3080 Ti is okay. It's still gonna be slower than the 6900 XT and 6950 XT that I just covered, but you can find these for like $500-ish to $600-ish dollars, which is not fantastic, but again, it's an option. 12 gigabytes of VRAM is okay, but I like to think the new RTX 5070 is going to make a used RTX 3080 Ti obsolete. And besides that, like everything else is not worth it. If you even think you can get a used 90 series GPU, like even like a RTX 3090, look at these prices. 960 bucks, 900, 880. And in terms of gaming performance, the 3090 is not gonna yield that much more performance over a 3080 Ti. So you're paying an unnecessary $300 markup in price over a 3080 Ti for gaming. And don't even get me started with the 4090. People are reselling these for more than what they paid for. Yeah, some dude sold his 4090 for $2,300. He made a profit. Like, anyways, my point is, you're not gonna get any more value out of a used graphics card above $500, which is a good thing because used graphics cards are supposed to be more affordable alternatives to new graphics cards, and that's more or less where they stop. But they offer plenty of performance. And again, any of these older graphics cards can utilize FSR 3. So if you feel like you're getting left out with the latest FPS upscaling technology, FSR 3 is really excellent and can be used on AMD, Nvidia, and even Intel graphics cards to improve your frame rate without actually needing to get a better graphics card. So there you have it. If you want to check out these graphics cards, again, I have them all linked in the description down below. And I want to give another thank you to Jawa for sponsoring this video. So with all of that said, thank you so much for watching. And this is the Scattervolt channel, signing out.